Hello, everyone. I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm the food enthusiast here at J More Living. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. You might see me looking off to the side slightly to see if there's any comments or questions. So I do invite you to do so, and I will be streaming for those. And today's guest is Gia Fracassetti. She is half the team of Cafe Gia. She and her mother Giovanna started Cafe Gia. I have to check what date that was. It is nestled in the historic Little Italy here in Baltimore, Maryland, which emerged around the middle of the 1800s. It was the starting point for many of the Italian immigrants coming in. It boasts now family restaurants, bocce courts, the Catholic parish, the cultural learning centers, Sons of Italy. It's a tight-knit neighborhood, but as years have progressed, it is not all Italian. So there's many different people living in Little Italy. Cafe Gia is located at Eastern Avenue and High Street. And let's welcome Gia. Hi, Gia. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you. Thank
I
you for
should
having me.
say buongiorno. And what's your menu for the day look like? After the show, what's in store for you?
For me personally or for
Yeah,
us
personally and the restaurant.
personally? So today's Thursday. So we generally indulge some. I'm with the kids this evening. Um, Sushi is Thursday night. So so personally speaking, homebound is we kind of venture for Asian flavors, Japanese flavors. In the restaurant, the specials that we're offering this evening are we have some beautiful seafood dishes tonight. We got zuppa di pesce, some frutta di mare. The weather's kind of cracking here, so it's like been really nice this past week. It started off a little hazy on Monday with the ice storm and the snowstorm, but we hear the birds chirping, so we're turning the page as far as like flavors go and specials go. We'll be lightening it up a little bit. Flavor
Heading
profile.
towards spring.
Yeah.
The spring flavors, absolutely. Um, how has Cafe Gia moved forward during these times? How have you adapted, and what is the restaurant doing now? And things have just changed, I think, this week for Baltimore City restaurants. So, what is
Yeah.
Cafe Gia offering
So
to the
let me
people?
so since last March, it's been a whirlwind, right? For the literally a whirlwind of a whirlwind. But as far speaking locally, speaking specifically about us and the area that we're in, um, we've had to pivot being like the word of the year 2020. Just like really kind of ramping up our carryout trade, um, offering more outside seating. We built a beautiful little parklet piazza on the street. So outside, especially during the warmer months, has been really optimal. Everybody wants to sit outside, and that's where people prefer. So we have implemented more outside dining. We have offered more of a carry out, curbside, online ordering platform to make it easier for people to order their carry outs. We've even offered deliveries to the counties, so that's been well received, and we're doing that sporadically also. So we're in it. We're doing what we can. We've done what we can to appeal to our customer base, keep our existing customer base, and appeal to new people who haven't been to the area. And we've gotten an overwhelming amount of support in the way of carry out. I mean, we're not a carry out restaurant. We're a dine in service establishment where people come, you know, date night, friends, special occasions, gatherings, receptions, and whatnot. So, we miss those. We miss those moments. The receptions and the graduation parties, May has always been one of our
strongest months.
Months that, kind of like highlight our year, because we have a lot of graduates from the local universities who celebrate, the next chapter in their lives. But, we'll see what 2021 brings us. It seems to be turning around a little bit. You got things that are rolling as far as, businesses reopening. We're now we're still at the same percentage, but we're hopeful that that's going to change in the next coming weeks. The time limit has been removed, so
things are progressing in a better way for restaurants at the moment.
It seems to be progressing in a better way. Yes.
Right. You and your mother, Giovanna, where did that decision come? Because both you and she were not in the restaurant business. How did you two come up with or decide that you're opening a restaurant? What were you doing? What was she doing before the restaurant?
So just prior to this whole Cafe Gia evolving, so I lived in Southern California for pretty much all of my 20s into my early 30s.
Right.
And I did dabble in the restaurant business there. I was also in the film and TV business doing makeup, but I was always in the restaurant business in some form or fashion. So I did have some experience as far as like front of the house, managing, and, customer relations. My mother, as you know, her history is in cosmetology. She has a hair salon. So we just kind of like, had this idea when I moved back that, if the opportunity presented itself, that we were going to go into the restaurant business. And that was just always kind of like something that we had talked about. I was raised in an Italian household. She's from Sicily. My grandparents were also from Sicily. And I mean, being in the kitchen has always been kind of like in our bloodline. So when this corner, which was Iggy's Sandwich King, had a little like for sale sign in the window, we liked the idea of being on the corner. We liked the idea of being on this particular corner. So we thought, let's go for it. We'll see what happens.
Well, obviously it worked out. What year did you open? Do you remember?
So we became Cafe Gia in 2010.
So you hit
initially when we took over, so it was breakfast and lunch. We maintained the same hours when we transitioned. And we maintained also that sort of like, it was a breakfast and lunch diner. So we kept that same sort of identity and menu, the hours. And then we realized that there wasn't a big trade here at that time for breakfast business. So we eventually transitioned from breakfast, lunch to lunch and dinner, and cultivated more of our flavor, our menu, our Sicilian flavors, like very classic home cooked meal that you would find at my grandmother's table right here on High Street. That's what we try and want to express here, and that's what we want our customers to feel like they're eating at my grandmother's table.
Nonna Rosa, right?
Nonna Rosa, yes.
Nonna Rosa. Your mother came here on the Andrea Dory with her father Pasquale and Rosa.
Correct.
Her parents.
And my uncle.
And your uncle. Sorry, I'm not keeping up with the notes. If you see me looking to the side, there are notes coming in from Jeffrey Spear, who was quelling over your bolognese. And as we said pre-show, you know me, the linguine and clams. And your husband, Gianfranco, I knew him from beforehand, is the pasta king. Pasta is his passion, and does the best linguine and clams that have passed these lips. And it's hard for me to come in and not get that.
Dara, just one word that I want to share with your guests. Vongole.
Vongole clams. Linguine and vongole.
Vongole.
I'm sorry. I just, I love Italian, but I can't speak it too well. I have my trouble with the double C's. I always mess things up there. It's very interesting. The enclave of Little Italy, you grew up there, you were on the West Coast and back, but you were raised there. At that point, 3 generations of the family. How was growing up there? And now that you have your children, before Nona Rosa passed in 2016, there were 4 generations of your family living there. How has that compared from your growing up to their time now in Little Italy?
I think Little Italy is still very, in the sense of it being there being a relevance of culture and ethnicity, the Italian culture. I think it's still very relevant. As you mentioned before, it's definitely becoming more diverse. When I was growing up here, I would say that the majority of neighbors were either, first generation or immigrants from, more probably the south of Italy, Sicily. But as far as it being, it's a wholesome neighborhood. It's family oriented. The church is thriving, when it's not COVID time. But
Right.
so there's been some challenges there. But our festivals are a big draw. It has that feel good family. People feel good when they come to Little Italy. They know they're getting a good meal. They know that they're in an environment immersed in culture. And I wanted my kids to experience a little bit of what I experienced. It's different. There are fewer family members here. Like you mentioned, my grandmother passed away a few years ago, but my kids were very lucky to live so close to her. She had lived in her house on High Street pretty much since they moved here back in 1953. So, that says something. You have these elderly immigrants that refuse to leave their house. They refuse to, move to the county. This is where they came, and this is where they're going to stay until
It's their time.
Until it's their time.
Right. I know your father grew up in Little Italy. Was his family Sicilian, or was he from another area of Italy?
So my dad's mom her family was from the Naples area. Her maiden name was Napolillo. Couldn't get any more Napolitano than that. My grandfather, who was not Italian, my paternal grandfather, who was not Italian, was from Hoboken, New Jersey. So we always said, you've kind of ingratiated yourself into the Italian culture. You're from where else in this country you're not getting any more Italian than Hoboken, New Jersey. So when he moved down here, my grandfather Al, great guy, when he moved to Baltimore from New Jersey when he was in his 20s for work, basically he immediately fell in love with my grandmother.
Your mother. I've lost the sound on you. There. Let's see. Are you back?
Yes.
Okay.
So my grandparents had a very fruitful marriage, living on Exeter Street, and actually 3 doors down from where I grew up, which is where we live now. So that was a beautiful. That was I feel very fortunate and blessed to have lived in the same community with both of my grandparents, within 10 feet away from me.
How old were you when you went to Italy the first time?
The first time, I was 2.5.
Oh, well, then there's no remembrance. But you do go back to Sicily, usually once a year. You have family there, is that correct?
I do. So my mom has first cousins there, and she's from the part of Sicily she's from is from Cefalù, It's a little city outside of Palermo. It's on the north coast.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a lot of extended family there. And I was very fortunate that my grandmother and my grandfather went back to Sicily pretty much annually, and they brought my siblings and myself with them for as long as we wanted. By the time teenage years hit, I didn't really want to spend 2.5 months in Italy with my grandparents, but it was a beautiful experience for us. I wouldn't trade that for the world.
And you've taken your children.
Yes, my children have been 3 times. So my husband is from Lombardia, which is all the way up north. And then Sicily is, as you know, all the way down south. So it's kind of like the 2 regions, the bookends.
I think some of the dishes that you offer, I don't know if everybody knows, some of the dishes that you eat in Italian restaurants are Sicilian, which is your arancini, your carpanata, a lot of cauliflower. So you do a cauliflower pasta. And there's a garganelli that you do with pistachio pesto, and some of the best pistachios come from Sicily. And there are a number of other ones. One of the things that you do there that is really more their Southern Italian, but you do, and I don't know if you're doing it right now, you do the limoncellos, the flavored limoncellos, and you were selling them. Are you still selling them?
We are. And speaking of pistachio, a few years ago when we went to Sicily, we got inspired to expand our assortment of flavors of cellos. So we've made one of our staples is the pistachio cello, which is outstanding. It's so smooth, it's delicious. So the limoncello and the pistachio cello and our chocolate cello, you can always find every day of the year. And depending on the season, we do special seasonal cellos. But yeah, the pistachio cello is outstanding. It's my favorite.
I think I've had that. Your mom, Giovanna, she and I are, we're sort of tuned at the hip. We're very much alike in a lot of ways. So as always, and it isn't just me, when you come to the restaurant, Giovanna could be sitting down with you, or you can, and sometimes you're seeing your daughter or your son running through. It's very family oriented. If you've not been to Cafe Gia in Little Italy, and before I forget, folks, the website is cafegiarestaurante.com. And the website is cafegiabaltimore.com. Your social media is Cafe Gia Restaurante on Instagram and Facebook. So again, the correction on the website, Cafe Gia Baltimore, and you can pre-order. The restaurant is also known for the beautiful artwork. And you had a wonderful artist who has passed. Why don't you tell me? I mean, the tabletops are painted and there's murals in the outside. And every time I walk in, I see something different. Tell us more about the artist and the painting and how that came about.
So our artist, Yuri, was friends with my mom and my grandmother, Rosa, years ago when he moved to Baltimore from St. Petersburg, Russia. I had first met Yuri when he started the outside facades and murals back in 2007. So the intention was to do the outside. We were inspired by a French cafe that is a very well-known French door, French cafe with the tables and the espresso and the glasses of wine and the little piazza, strada, via area in Europe. So the intention was just to do the exterior. And we had a very specific idea of how we wanted the exterior painted. We have pictures of Chefalou. We have images of Chefalou. We have an image of my grandparents' wedding day on one of the walls. And it's just, and one of the panels also pays homage to my mother's passion of bocce ball. So we have that, and it's just very friendly and very welcoming. And that was the intention, was to do the exterior, and we hadn't really gotten as far as what are we going to do inside. So it was kind of like Yuri's brainstorming was, you know what, guys, you should paint the tables. You should paint the tables. Every table can have like a different personality. It will also secure me like extra years of work. True. No, he's a good guy, extraordinarily talented. So we have the upstairs mural was more of like his thing. He has a party mural on the second floor of just a beautiful party scene on one wall. He has I don't know if you can see behind me, he has, this is the picture of Chef Alou and some of the Sicilian men kind of playing cards, drinking wine, drinking limoncello around the marina. And then all of the tables have a different tabletop. The murals downstairs on our first floor are vintage beverage and food posters that he has replicated. But you know what? The tables give it a very a fresh vibe, because we do have to, it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. Many of our tables are tables meant for two, so we can pull them apart, put them together for a party of 4 or 6 or 8. And depending on where you're sitting, you know, you might be in the same part of the restaurant the next time you come in, but you're sitting at a different table, so it gives it a different ambiance.
And you change it seasonally, don't you? Don't you have some that are more seasonal that you put out on the tabletops?
We do. So we have holiday tables that we unscrew the tabletops and we put the holiday tables on, usually the weekend after Thanksgiving, and then leave those up for Valentine's. And then we have our heart and our amore tables for Valentine's, and we'll keep them throughout spring. And then our, year-long tables per se.
I can't say enough about how visual, dining to me is having friends around the table, and the atmosphere is just as important. And there's so much atmosphere in Cafe Gia. And a lot of the desserts that are done at Cafe Gia are house made, and the traditional Sicilian dessert, which is the cannoli, the tiramisu, and I don't know, are you doing the ricotta cake? Your father used to do that, and your mom took it over?
Yeah, so we do the lemon ricotta cake from time to time. Our two everyday desserts, our specialty desserts, are the cannoli and the tiramisu. We usually have a gluten-free, typically a creme brulee, chocolate creme brulee for the folks who prefer to not have something with gluten. And we also have homemade gelati. Depending on the day of the week, we offer different flavors, but those are very popular and delicious. But getting back to something that you had said before, Dara, as far as the ambiance goes and our murals and creating a very welcoming space, one compliment that always strikes me from our guests that have either, first come here, they were recommended here, they had just gone to Italy, or they went to Italy 10 years ago. Something that is such a big compliment to me and to my mom is that they feel like they're in Italy when they're here. They feel very comfortable. They feel like they've transported themselves for the afternoon or the evening. And I think that's really important. And it really warms my heart that we can extend that feeling, because when you are dining out, it's more than just going out for a bite to eat. You want people to leave with a certain feeling and a certain memory. So it's the biggest compliment to me when they say, I feel like I'm in Italy. Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm looking here and checking for the notes. I got a note that there's a clicking coming from my end, but I can't do anything about it. Every week, it's a new technical challenge that I face here.
A little bit of static, but it's not that prevalent. It's very light, slight.
It's a clicking. I can't help it. I don't know why one day it's doing one thing and another day it's not. I usually end the show with a couple of questions. And before that, I just want to talk to people, and we were talking about it before we came on air. There is a bucatini shortage. And bucatini is a pasta with a hole in the center.
Like a
And
straw. Yeah.
like a straw. And that comes to, we were discussing it, that as everything was happening here with COVID, that people were going to natural straws, that they were using the bucatini as
Correct.
straws.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And, but it seems DiCecchio, am I pronouncing it right? It's got the double C's,
Bucatini.
DiCecchio.
Yeah.
Okay. It seems their packaging, somebody did a very big investigation into why there was no bucatini in the US, was DiCecchio, who is a big importer of pasta, something with their ingredients didn't have the right amount of iron in their product for the FDA. So folks, that's why there's a bucatini shortage. So my final questions are, I know that you're not the chef there, but I always ask people, what was your most epic culinary fail?
So can I have some latitude on that question, answering it?
You
As
have
far
some
as
latitude.
some latitude. Not so much a culinary fail, but a restaurant sort of fail, if that's allowed.
That's allowed.
Would be that I didn't have more of a handle on early on my website and my marketing, my menus, creating them, developing them, and really managing them, because I've learned so much in the past
Okay.
10 years that it's really important that I, as the owner, have all of the logins, because I have a bad experience from that early on. The logins and the passwords, and just manage it myself. So I would say that that was not culinary related, but restaurant related, that it's really important that we manage ourselves and we manage the marketing and the messaging, because, my website was down a few years ago from no fault of my own. And my goal was to make sure that that never happened again. Um, and always kind of like being the owner and taking ownership of all of, our brand and our marketing and whatnot. So that would be my biggest fail.
Okay. All right. So there was no failed cannoli in your history. It was more a marketing.
But I wouldn't say it's a complete failure. Sometimes we try to tweak recipes, and then we learn after tweaking here and tweaking there that we have to just really keep to the traditional original recipes. We've tweaked with the ricotta cheese. If you're talking about the cannoli, I'm not sure if you have a personal experience, because we wouldn't serve that, but we've like kind of used different products. Sometimes we're given different products, or we sample different products. Yeah, we when it comes to the very traditional dishes, we try to stick to it being very, very traditional ingredients.
Well, let's see. So the last question is, what didn't I ask you that I should have?
Hmm. Good question. Well, you didn't ask me, and we touched on my grandma quite a bit. You didn't ask me what I miss most about her cooking.
Okay.
Because I think about that often.
And what is it that you
I,
miss?
I regret not writing down a lot of her recipes. Um, she had all of her baking recipes down to the T, so I have all those. But anything cooking related, that was just kind of like, we're gonna throw it in, taste it as we go along, and when it tastes good, that's it. It's good to go. But every Christmas, my grandmother made a delicious Sicilian pizza that we only served on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. And I miss those flavors, and I miss those moments. And I regret not being in the kitchen with her more in the later years to kind of observe the way that she was maneuvering around the kitchen while she was still doing her magic.
It's, I have some memories of my grandmother, far from being Italian, but one grandmother was gone when I was born. The other one was up in Pennsylvania. And I just saw her making, it was called pierogan. It was sort of like a long, narrow knish. And she would make that. And I enjoyed watching her in the kitchen. So I definitely understand what you're saying. And my mother was a great cook. So yeah, the only thing I regret from her is I didn't get the gefilte fish recipe. Enough. Let me just say to people and remind them that the food is available from 4 p.m. on. And are you doing 7 days at Cafe Gia, or do you take a day off?
So during the week we open at 5. Monday through Friday we open at 5. On the weekends we open at 4. We are here 7 days a week. We're open for carry out during lunchtime, and also corporate catering as well. Yeah, we're here 7 days a week.
Okay. So everyone, it is the website Cafe Gia Baltimore, and the social media is Cafe Gia Ristorante for Facebook and Instagram. Gia, my regards to Giovanna, to Jean. I thank you so much for being on the show, and continued success and good health to everyone over there.
Thank you very much, Dara. You have a good afternoon.
You as well.
Thank you.
Next week, Lane Levine of Friendly Bread will be our guest, and we'll be talking sourdough. Don't get upset over that. Don't get sour about that. It's sourdough next week. You can find the show immediately up on the Facebook J More Living page. You can also find it at jmoreliving.com and YouTube within the next couple of hours. If you want to reach me, you can reach me at food@jmoreliving.com. My social is at Dara Cooks. And as always, we want you to support local restaurants, wear your mask, stay safe. May your plates always remain full. And if you care to, please share the show with friends who you think will enjoy it. Stay safe, have a good week, and I'll see you next Thursday.